Hi, I'm Marty McNair, the founder of the Jordan McNair Foundation, and I'd like to welcome everybody once again to Can My Child Play Conversations. So, Can My Child Play Conversations are started off from spinoff from my book, Can My Child Play? The Questions We Should Have Asked. And basically what we do, we have a unique guest on our show, and we talk about our experiences, questions that parents should ask, in recruitment, and just a variety of things to keep our student athletes safe. So tonight we have a special guest that I'm really proud to say that's been a part of our family, one of Jordan's good friends, the writer of the foreword of Can My Child Play, Mr. Ellis McKennie. How you doing, Ellis?
Good, Mr. Marty. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Hey, Ellis, so what I want to do is I want to kind of speak to, have a different topic tonight. And basically, we're talking about child safety or student athlete safety at all levels of competition, from AAU to collegiate level sports. But one of the main things that I want to emphasize in 2021 is being impactful to make a big difference to keep our children safe. Now, unfortunately, we lost 16 kids last summer. The majority of them were heat-related, due to complications of heat-related injuries. And these may have been from different parts of the country that geographically, if you didn't live in these parts of the country, you would probably never even hear about these young people passing from this 100% preventable injury. But the main thing in regards to the Jordan McNair Foundation and our efforts to continue our national voice, one of our main things we want to do is basically get out and make an impact across the nation. And one of the main things that I know we can do with that is to pass legislation and policy and legislation in regards to state law that everyone would have to adhere to. Guess what? We can talk to a bunch of schools. We can talk to a lot of coaches. I love grassroots work where we donate cold water tubs and we talk to student athletes and parents and all that type of stuff. However, but I know the only way for us really to be impactful is to pass state law. So I want you to go ahead. I brought you on this evening because I know you did some interning a couple years in the state house and in the political arena. And I want you basically, Ellis, to talk to us this evening and share how laws get passed from the idea, the conception of the idea, all the way through. But I want you to talk to us kind of like in layman's terms, because I know for myself, when I'm holding up a draft bill, something similar to this. I'm looking at one right now. And if I hold up a draft bill, it reads like Chinese or hieroglyphics to me. And I have no idea what it says. Here's a bill right here. It's a bunch of language that I'm not really comfortable with. So right. Ellis, could you basically take us to school and take us into government 101 or politics 101 when it comes to passing a bill into a law?
For sure. Well, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm really excited what we're doing with the foundation and what we've got planned going forward. Like you said, a lot of the stuff that we began the foundation with was a lot of the grassroots kind of organized, and you were going to different gymnasiums, going to talk to coaches, having different events where we were getting the message out there about what happened to Jordan. Now, like you said, it's time to transition into an impact phase where we can make an impact through legislation that we can get passed on a state level. And like you said, I was a government politics major in college. I'm currently in law school. I have a master's in policy. So I'm a big believer in the power of legislation, especially at the local level, to make an impact on everyone's lives. Everyone wants to look at Congress and the president, things like that. But when actuality, it is the state legislatures and these small local governments that make bigger decisions that can impact our lives. And for our purpose, that's where we want to live. We want to live in the realm of some municipal, smaller governments and state governments that can make an impact for us. So just in terms of a little bit of government politics 101, we live in a system of federalism. So we have, starting at the federal level, we have Congress, and Congress sets the laws, but they leave different rights for the states. The states have the opportunity to make their own laws that aren't in the Constitution. The Constitution is a list that lists what the federal government's powers are, and then everything else is left to the states. So the states have a wide variety of things that they can set legislation for. And then lower from the states are the local governments, where we've worked with, say, the Baltimore City Council before, or different municipalities. But the state level is probably the biggest arena that we could excel in, because it'll cover the broadest area without having to jump around like we've talked about between municipalities. Like if we worked in Maryland and we want to pass something in Baltimore City, that's great. But then, you could go 10 yards away and be in Baltimore County and the same things don't apply. And we want to make sure that we're reaching the biggest number of people we can. And so at the state level, legislatures are kind of made up just like Congress. They're made into two separate chambers. So it'll be the House and the Senate. And the House is the House of the people. It's more representative, and where the Senate's usually kind of localized. It's one per whatever district. And so in order to get legislation into these bodies, so legislation has to be passed by both houses in order to get to the governor's desk and get signed. And for order for that to happen, there first must be a draft. Someone has to come up with an idea, someone has to come up with a plan, something they want to change, something they want to address, and literally sit down and write a bill. That's where we come in with an upper hand, where we've worked with other folks. We have a bill that was passed in Baltimore City, where we have a bill in mind that we can see that we'd like to get worked on, that we'd like to get passed in different state legislatures around the country. So that's good. We're past step one. We know what we want to get done. We have language to get it done. But the next, and probably one of the biggest steps and one of the biggest challenge for us over the next year, is we need to get it introduced. And to get it introduced onto the floor of these different chambers, we need someone to be our champion. We need a Brooke Learman of sorts, a Shelley Heddleman of sorts, those people in Maryland who have been able to champion our cause for us and bring it to the state floors and the state legislatures. Because as an unelected official, we don't have the ability just to present a bill for the legislature to vote on. We need an elected official to go forward and present that. So that's what you do. You go, you find someone who's interested. We were lucky in terms of Baltimore City, where Brandon Scott was interested in it, and he took the bill forward, and he gave us that help. And like I said, people like Brooke Learman and Senator Reedy and people like that who did it last year for us and introduced it at the Maryland legislature. So that's what you need, to find someone to introduce the bill. Now, so once the bill's introduced and language has been drafted and it gets its number, it could be, House resolution or House Bill 120, whatever it could be. That's next, it goes to committee. So it'll be assigned to, depending on every state's going to be different on what committee it could be assigned to, because every state has different types of committees. It could be assigned to health and wellness. It could be assigned to a recreational committee, depending on how that House or that Senate decides to recognize our bill. And so once it gets assigned to committee, that's when the committee debates the merits, and there could be amendments. That's like last year when we sat on the panel at the state legislature and in Maryland, and that was a committee hearing where they're debating the merits of our bill. They could propose amendments. They could ask questions to different witnesses and things like that. They'll hold hearings to discuss the merits of the bill. And then once committee is finished debating, the committee has its own vote. So the committee must pass a majority of the committee to be able to make it to the floor of one of these chambers. So it'll be introduced in the House. Once it's introduced on the floor, it goes to the committee. Committee debates, and committee votes and sends it back to the floor, where now it's open to debate from the whole House. So if it's either in the House of Delegates or if it's in the Senate, it's up for debate. And then there's a final floor debate. So then once the final floor debate happens and the majority of say senators vote and pass the bill, now the bill gets cross-filed and gets passed over to the other side, right? So we have the House and the Senate. So it has to be an identical bill passed on both sides. So as you can see, there are a lot of steps where people have their own input on what they think should happen. And I think we have the opportunity here where we have such a straightforward, non-political, non-charged item that we can get through without too many people trying to change and tweak it. It's inexpensive because all these bills come with a fiscal note on the bottom saying how much it's going to cost the state. So it's something that we keep in mind. And so we need to make it through all these different steps, hopefully keeping the integrity of the bill that we want until you get it on the floor, you get it passed, and then it gets cross-filed and gets sent to the other house. And the other house has to pass an identical bill. And now the bill goes and sits on the desk of the governor, and the governor then can either sign it or can veto. Most governors have veto power, and if it gets vetoed, and gets sent back down to the House and Senate for a veto override. But hopefully we have something that we wouldn't really have to worry about that for. So once the governor signs it, that's when the bill becomes law. Typically it will become law that next fiscal year. And so in terms of the Jordan McNair Foundation, something that I've started to think about, our biggest needs going forward, like I said earlier, are champions. That's something we have to go look out for. We have to go find elected officials, whatever states we start to target first, that we think would be interested, and reach out and say, listen, we have this cause. This is what our foundation does. We want you to be, we think you should be interested, and here's why. And we reach out, and that's how you find elected officials. And then next it'll be a momentum type lobbying phase. Once you're able to get a bill into the House, that's when you can go office to office saying, hey, there's a vote on this bill coming up soon. We're the Jordan McNair Foundation, or we have people hired to go talk to folks. That's what lobbyists do for a living, and go and try to rally momentum around our bill. And so that's just the quick overview of how a bill comes from being drafted to committee to the floor cross-filed and signed by the governor at the state level.
Got it. So Ellis, you just literally gave me an adult version of, I'm old enough to be your dad. So we had a cartoon when I was
I think we have it too, how a bill becomes law.
Yeah.
I'm just
I don't even know
bill.
if they still play that or not, but
they still,
yeah,
they played
I
that.
think
They played that
that we'll get better with our technology, and I think, hey, look, I may try to see if when we edit this, we can get that cartoon put in on it somewhere along the way.
have the little bill bouncing
Yeah,
across the
exactly.
screen.
Correct. Right. So Ellis, even when you said that, and that was pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. Now, keep in mind, so where we at right now is, unfortunately, we lost some young people last year. Now, I think that, same way these bills the bills were passed, and you talked about municipalities, and I think that was ideal because, thanks to our new mayor, Brandon Scott, we had got the Jordan McNair Youth Safety Protection Act filed in Baltimore City, or passed in Baltimore City. But one of the main things was, like I said, even in trying to chase municipalities, because like you said, you can go 10 miles to the left or 10 miles to the right, and you could be in a different county, and then you're in a different municipality, and things may be different. Now, the goal of the Jordan McNair Foundation from a national perspective would be to, let's go into 52 states, right? And let's get laws passed that will apply to everybody. And like you said, I wasn't even aware of a fiscal bill or a fiscal number being at the bottom of a bill. So clearly that was something that I just learned as well. Now, we got a law that we want to pass, right? Or a law that's already been passed in another state. We tweak it and we may just add more to it. And let's say we take the Jordan McNair Youth Safety Protection Act in Baltimore City, and we take the Zach Martin Act in Riverdale or Fort Myers, Florida, that basically just covered one of our colleagues, partners in the advocacy process, Lori Diagiano. She got that passed. And basically her law was basically that every high school supposedly would have a cold water tub and a AED machine, right? And obviously the training that goes along with that. However, from what I'm reading, from what I'm reading in this bill, basically the state only proposed that, or they suggested that the high schools did this. It's not mandatory that they do that, because guess what? If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Hopefully they will. But the thing is, we wanted to add, if we want to add two bills together, and that way we can cover everything as opposed to trying to chase different municipalities. And guess what? We start at the state level and we get all these things passed. Now, you already said, hey, we draft the bill, we get it to the first phase of it, or the first house.
Yeah, we get it introduced
to the second house.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And then basically we get a champion we get that champion a lobbyist for us. Now, when it comes to getting the support of the community, what phase of that is that? So if we got to get signatures on this bill or whatever the case may be, what part of the phase is that, Ellis?
So honestly, the community organizing aspect goes along with the lobbying part, because at the end of the day, elected officials are accountable to those who vote for them. So at the end of the day, if you can have people from the community reaching out to their officials saying, hey, we support the Jordan McNair Act, this is something that's important to us, that's when you actually start to get the attention of some of these elected officials. Because when I worked in the Senate for one of the Maryland senators, we even, we just talked to different, so I didn't answer the phones, but some of the other offices had people answering phones, and we used to talk to interns, and they would say conversations end very quickly if someone calls in and they're not our constituent, because our constituent is what's important to us. The people that get us elected are who are important to us. So Mr. Marty, me and you could call someone from Ohio and say, hey, we're from Baltimore, we're working on it, and the elected official might say, I'm sorry, I don't have time for you right now, and hang up the phone. Whereas someone from their district is more important and could get their ear better than we could. That's where the community organizing aspect would come from.
Got it. So you basically have to have feet on the ground in those communities or those states that you're trying to implement law.
Right.
Now, Ellis, the main thing, and I'll keep referring back to the young people that we lost last year, because again, it's always, we have to be very strategic or adept. I'm sorry, we have to be very strategic and tactful in who we put on a bill. And unfortunately, I'm sorry that, we got a lot of us parents got connected from losing our student athletes to, this type of injury or
Right.
complications from this type of injury. But I think that those states that where we've lost these young people as a result of this type of injury are prime states where to say, okay, same way in Maryland, we got the Jordan McNair law passed.
Right.
In the same way in Florida, we got Zach Martin law passed. I think that it would be ideal for us to go into these states and support these parents that
100%.
lost their young
Well,
people.
Mr. Martin, I think that's important. That's an important piece to mention because you have to look at the mission of the Jordan McNair Foundation. It's to end this 100% preventable injury. The mission isn't to have 50 Jordan McNair bills passed in every state, So however the means we can get it done, that's how we got to do it. And like I said, the local and community organizing aspect of it, if we have the name of a child who passed away, who people in that area know about, who it's affected those local communities, that's how you get legislation passed, as opposed to some random outside bill of a group of advocates. So
I agree. Good point. Good point. And that's really what I wanted to speak to today because clearly we definitely have a lot of work to do. But again, I think the states, unfortunately, where we lost some young people at, this is how we kind of keep their legacies alive. And I think that, just really kind of putting the bills that we already have in place together, I think we can be more impactful because again, like you said, it's not really costing anybody. It's a straightforward, it's a non-political bill. All we really want to focus on is player safety. And one of the main things, Ellis, the foundation's mission, but in regards to the actual foundation, it's interesting because you're a football player, just recently, retired, not even a year yet. But I think that, when we look at, and I want to talk about the significance of a bill being passed or how impactful, this can be. When we look at every type of injury, and I want you to, give me a yay or nay on this, we can't prevent a torn ACL. You can't prevent a broken bone, a pulled hamstring. You can't prevent any of these type of injuries. However, one injury that you can prevent is a heat stroke.
For sure. And honestly, that's honestly the tragedy in these stories that we continue to hear. The story about Jordan and the story about any other child who passed away from heat stroke, especially for someone like me who's on the field, is that I know in my head, if I would have known this information then, this would have turned out different.
Exactly.
And I know the more people who hear this story and who can understand the tools that they need to have at their disposal to treat heat-related illness can prevent this from happening to other students.
Exactly.
So that is the true nature and the true pride behind why I'm so passionate about it, is because I can see an alternate universe where had a Jordan McNair Foundation existed before the passing, obviously that's a silly concept to think of, but had that something like that happened and we'd been educated to the point where we should have been, we could have prevented that type of injury from occurring.
I agree. And I think that goes across the table wherever this is at. And I think that, it comes to a time where, gone are the days where we need to be reactionary.
Right.
And meaning, guess what? Oh, we lost a kid yesterday. Now we all want to go get a cold water tub today. Yep. No, that has to stop. And I think that clearly, we have to create, like I said, I'm gung-ho on policy and legislation just because guess what? People respect the law.
Right.
Not saying that, and I don't want anything to, I don't want anybody to go to jail or whatever the case may be, but I just think that, in the event that certain things aren't in play, once they do become law, I still think that there should be some consequences to say, okay, cool, maybe the school shouldn't have, sports programs should be eliminated or suspended or just whatever we can come up with. But I still think that, Ellis, again, and I'd rather go to 52 states and be impactful as opposed to try to go into 500 schools, because guess what? I love grassroots work and I love talking and connecting with people. But at the end of the day, what's to say we go into a school or we go to an AU program, we donate a cold water tub, we train everybody on how to use a cold water tub. They get the proper training, and who's to say they're going to use it? What's really
and that's all, and that's also not to say that's something we're going to eliminate from the foundation either, because that's obviously a big element of what we do is going and doing these different types of events. It's just looking bigger picture. What else can we do? What way can we make the biggest impact possible? Because the gymnasium talks that we have their own type of impact that are a little bit different than the way legislation can have an impact as well. So it's going to be working in tandem with the two of those, especially, with geographical constraints and things like that. So.
Yep. I totally agree. So Ellis, let me ask you, so you spoke about that. And what's the, I know because we spoke with delegate today in regards
Mhm.
to a bill that's currently going up for um, I guess it'll go in front of a committee again, the one from last year.
Yep. So I think they're getting ready to introduce it when the session starts. The session will start coming here soon, and then it'll be assigned to a committee. Yep.
Got it. Now, let me ask you this, Ellis. How soon do we have to start the draft process prior to now, before the session starts?
Right. So in the state of Maryland, we've been lucky, like we said, where we had a bill last year and we're almost refiling the same bill. And so you do want to get involved. It depends. It depends state by state, which is where we're kind of lucky, where we have an outline for the most part of what we want done and what we want to be able to say. And it'll be working with our partners at each state to figure out what we want the specifics to be. But, Maryland has a session that runs from, the end of January to the beginning of April. It's a 90-day legislative session. So a lot of the representatives get their work done in the fall and winter to get ready to present a bill in the spring and in the late winter. But I know in the state of Illinois it's different, where they might have their session during the summer or during the late fall where they prepare their bills. So it's kind of that's a lot of work, not a lot of work, but it's extra effort on our end to, when we target a state, to know when their deadlines are and what type of work we have to get done when and where. It's not one set date, state by state. That's one of the things about state government, is that everything operates differently depending on the state that you're in.
Got it. And that answered my question, as opposed to, I didn't know if it was a cookie cutter process.
Right. See, that's the nice thing. That's the nice thing about the federal government, is the nice thing. Whereas, we have one federal government, which is Congress, which governs all 50 states, but it's nearly impossible to get anything done. It's impossible to get anyone's attention. It's a big, the Congress is a show a lot of the times, where some of these issues can get caught in the mud, where you can actually make impact at the local level.
Got it. Now, Ellis, what do you think? Just your personal opinion from the information that you got, and I pretty much know when we talked about municipalities as well. Clearly, I think that, and one of the things that we really want to do from a foundation effort is work smarter, not harder.
Right.
And, hey, if we tried to chase municipalities, we might as well be chasing, high schools as well, or just trying to do, we're back at that same thing. Now, even though it seemed like it was a lot easier to get a bill passed at the Baltimore City level,
right? Which is true. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier. That's a different type of government, where it's run by it's a county council, where I think Baltimore City Council has less than 10 members, maybe a little bit more, not many. And so that's not a big house where you might have 60, 70 members you got to convince and then pass it off and then get a signature of a governor. It is a much easier process at the municipal level, like you said.
But the only thing is, how we're still limited to that municipality.
Right. Easier process, but less impact. 100%.
Got it. Yeah, got it. So we'd be better off playing at the state level to make
because that's the thing. Even though some of these states are large and some of their, some of the governments are fairly large as well, it's still local government to the point. Some of these delegates can represent only a couple hundred people. It's not like we're going to Congress, like I said again, where they're representing hundreds of thousands of people per congressman. This is still a small grassroots, localized type effort, even though it's at the state legislatures.
Got it. Well, hey, Ellis, I didn't know that either, for sure. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Is there anything else you'd like to add to tell us more about what we may not know about the actual, about the actual state level in regards to this? Because I think a lot of people come to us, and unfortunately, we're trying to establish a basic or successful template to, unfortunately, it just is what it is at this point. And where there's tragedy, we try to find some type of triumph in that, in regards to making an impact in, whatever state that was, or wherever we lost that young person at.
Right.
But the thing is, we still want to kind of put a successful template together, because I think that when people think of the Jordan McNair Foundation, they just kind of think like, wow, we kind of got it together, and we're just in the building process. And luckily we got, smart people like you, or experienced people like you on our board and on our team that, clearly knows a little bit about a lot. I'm sorry. We have a lot of people that know a little bit about a lot of things in specific areas. And you just happen to be the subject matter expert here. That's on our team, and, whatever. But how can we realistically sit there and make the changes that we need in other states? So if we're going into Texas this year, or we're going into Florida this year, or we're going into Arkansas this year, because the thing is, we're losing people. We lost 16 young people last year. And the crazy thing about it, like I mentioned earlier, if there was no geographical mention of it, we wouldn't even know. But luckily, unfortunately, that's just our advocacy business, and therefore we make it our business to find out where these things happen at. But again, what do we do with the town in 12? What do we do with the town in West Texas with only a population of 1,200 people?
Right. Well, so here's the thing. It honestly starts with, it's kind of a tragedy, a little bit sad that we have to make a law about student athlete safety in the first place. You would wish that was the norm, that we do the most important, we do the most that we can do to keep our students safe. If you hear that heat-related illness is a problem, every coach in their right mind should think, I need a cold water tub. But unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not how athletics are run all the time. A lot of budget restraints, and some things get cut. And so our goal is to put these to get these laws passed and make that a priority, that you have to have it done, right? And so that's why going to the different states is going to make an impact, where even if we don't get something passed, it'll get the discussion started. It may catch the eye of a couple coaches here and there. So what may look like a failure if you go to a big state like Texas and don't get something passed won't actually be a complete failure, because there will be a kid out there that will not have access to a cold water tub that didn't before, just from hearing about the efforts that were made by the Jordan McNair Foundation or something like that. So it's one of those things where we have to try. You got to go out and do what and do your best and keep this conversation going just well past the advocacy stage, and make it a legitimate topic of discussion for student athletes everywhere.
Yep, I agree. And one thing people respect nationwide, they respect law. They respect the law.
Definitely.
And I think that, clearly this is the way to etch it in stone. And Ellis, but let me give you a layman's question, or ask you a layman's question. So when a law is passed, how long does the law stay in effect until it's voted out? Is it indefinite?
It'll say
what?
Laws will say how long they have to stay in effect, but a lot of times, especially a law like this, will get passed, and before it runs out, it'll be renewed. Like you'll see the date. Usually there'll be some maybe 2 years, some maybe 5 years. That always depends, as well as the fiscal responsibility on it. So where our bill is kind of like a policy bill as opposed to a financial bill or something like that. It may be a 10-year bill, but that all depends. Again, it's not a cookie cutter design there.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Yep. Ellis, hey man, you've been extremely informative this evening, as always. Anything you want to add? And what I wanted specifically to do was, we wanted to kind of build some content on some serious subject matters, so that way, guess what? We can kind of build up our followers on social media, especially YouTube as well.
For sure.
We'll upload this video on Jordan McNair TV on the Jordan McNair Foundation.org website. We'll do probably something, a clip of it on Twitter or Facebook, IG. And if you ever have anybody has any questions pertaining to anything we ask, feel free to reach out to the Jordan McNair Foundation. You can reach us in the contact list. Hey, Ellis, and clearly I'm sure, you're a subject matter expert, you're a thought leader. Clearly you're going in the right direction. You're at GW Law School, correct?
Yep, that law school started my second semester.
Yeah, man, we're more than proud of you. Hey, I'm not mad at you that you took the law school route as opposed to coming to work for the foundation.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was a tough decision. We're thinking long term. We're thinking long term here, Mr. Marty.
Exactly. Hey, look, and so are we. So of course,
Exactly. I knew you weren't going anywhere. You weren't going anywhere.
We ain't going nowhere.
Wasn't worried about that. You get a good bit of my time anyway.
Hey,
so
man,
it was a win-win.
As long as I can always get in touch with you, I'm
right.
So Ellis, we follow you. If any of our viewers want to contact you and ask you any basic questions on your subject matter expertise, where can they reach you at?
Yeah, please reach out to me on all social media. So on Twitter, I'm at Ellis McKennie, and then on Instagram, I'm at eMcKennie68. Please feel free to reach out and contact me at any point in time. I'd love to talk about the foundation or any other questions people might have for me.
Great. There it is, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Ellis, thank you for your information, man. We definitely appreciate it.
For
It's
sure.
been
Thank you for
very
having me.
informative. I'm sure that we'll continuously have some conversations around, how to make an impact and how to make an impact at state level and how to make an impact at the policy and
Definitely.
legislation level. So I'm sure this won't be our last conversation on this. And of course, I'll invite you back on to continuously help us make a difference.
For
So
sure.
Ellis, thanks again, man. We wish you nothing but blessings and continued success from the Jordan McNair Foundation.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for being a part of what we do. I know that, man, Jordan is smiling down on us. And like I said, everybody, please follow us on see this episode. Please go to our YouTube channel, the Jordan McNair Foundation. You can go to our Facebook channel, which is the Jordan McNair Foundation. You can go to IG, the Jordan McNair Foundation, and you can follow us on Twitter at JM Foundation. And most importantly, we wouldn't be who we are if we didn't have our book where it all started at, Can My Child Play? The questions that we should have asked. And basically, this talks about how to keep our young student athletes safe and to prevent these type of injuries and prevent specifically this type of injury and to diminish the heat-related deaths. So I want to thank everybody again. And Ellis, hey man, we appreciate you, and I can't thank you enough. And I always look forward to working with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Marty. Talk to you
Yep.
soon.